Well, y'all welcome. We're glad to have with us signing Holly May and Larissa Martin, who is seated there. Chaplain Denny, if you please.
Sure. I'm Chaplain Denny. I'm the full-time support chaplain for this great state of South Carolina. If you would you please pray with me? Gracious Lord, we pause from this day to lift up our state and Florida and Georgia and those other potential states that could be impacted by Hurricane Ian. We ask that you help us to practice sound wisdom and prudent judgment as we prepare for and navigate the potential for this storm. So, Lord, keep us safe, watch over us, and help us to always bring your honor, praise, and glory. And I pray this in your mighty name, Lord. Amen.
Thank you. We have several speakers and those to answer questions. John Quirello with the National Weather Service. John.
Thank you, Governor. Hello, everyone. I'm John Quirello with the National Weather Service. Ian will likely bring widespread impacts to the state of South Carolina, both coastal and inland, beginning Thursday and persisting into the weekend. There's the potential for tropical storm force winds, storm surge flooding along the coast, heavy rainfall and flash flooding inland, and isolated tornadoes. Ian is currently a Category 3 hurricane with wind speeds of 120 miles per hour. It's located about 255 miles south of Sarasota, Florida, and moving north at 10 miles an hour. Tropical storm and storm surge watches were issued earlier this morning for the coast from Charleston County south through the Georgia state line. Ian is currently forecast to approach the west coast of Florida as a major hurricane on Wednesday, lift northeast across the peninsula on Thursday and early Friday, before lifting north, likely as a tropical storm, across portions of Georgia and South Carolina on Saturday. Given uncertainty in the track, it's certainly possible that Ian could cross Florida into the Atlantic before turning north and directly impacting the coast. The current weather pattern will result in strengthening wind and increasing storm surge well ahead of Ian's approach. Breezy conditions could occur on Thursday, with tropical storm force winds possible across most of the state by Friday and persisting into Saturday. These strong onshore winds will result in a prolonged period of storm surge inundation beginning Thursday and likely continuing through Saturday. Significant inundation of 2 to 4 feet above ground level is expected along the southern and central portions of the South Carolina coast, with those in low-lying, flood-prone areas being especially vulnerable. Periods of heavy rainfall late Thursday through Saturday could produce flash flooding inland from the coast and perhaps landslides in the higher elevations in the upstate of South Carolina. Please remember not to focus on the category of the storm, but rather the forecasted impacts, which again could be significant across much of the state late this week into the weekend. And we remind everyone to stay tuned to changes in the forecast. You could go to hurricanes.gov, which is the National Hurricane Center, or from your local Weather Service office. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll answer questions, everyone, when we get through with these first preliminary remarks. The main thing I want to assure all South Carolinians is that we are fully prepared. The people you see here are part of a much larger team that includes people in the counties and national observers as well, but we are fully prepared for whatever comes. These very people that you see here, you've seen them all before. We've been through a lot of hurricanes and tornadoes and other storms together, and we are fully prepared and will be making announcements as necessary. And we would urge everyone, again, as we always do, to get your information from official sources, which is not always social media. We want to try to be sure that our people are well informed. We don't want to unduly interrupt the schools or the businesses in their normal activities, their normal daily activities, but we know that we're going to have a lot of water. We're going to have some wind. To be a tropical storm, you have to be at, I think, 37 or 39 miles an hour. And the hurricanes, you know, are much faster than that. But we know that we're going to experience some rough weather. and we'll be making announcements as necessary, full announcements when the time comes. So stay tuned. Again, we have the probably as experienced a team as there is, and great assets in our state. And so we'll keep everyone informed, and we're ready. So at this time, we'll start with Director Ken Stinson, if you please. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kim Stenson, Director, South Carolina Emergency Management Division. My first point really is echoing what the governor's already said, is that Team South Carolina has had a great deal of experience preparing for, responding to, and recovering from hurricanes and tropical storms over the last several years. And this is one of our greatest strengths. We're closely monitoring Hurricane Ian forecasts and working closely with local authorities, county emergency managers, our state partners, and obviously the National Weather Service to respond to the storm. We started conducting daily coordination calls with the local authorities, county emergency managers last Sunday to identify any issues or unmet needs. And right now, counties are reporting no unmet needs. However, we have a logistics system in place to assist local authorities should the need arise. And that system was most recently validated extensively during COVID operations. Important for all of us to have emergency plans in place for whatever disaster situation that we might encounter and may find ourselves in. And of course, Hurricane Ian is no different, and we all need to be our own emergency managers. Residents should review their personal safety plans and consider actions that they need to take if threatened by any storm or any disaster, really, including having bottled water and non-perishable food for every person in the family for a 3-day period, and then certainly having items like weather radios, batteries, flashlights, and chargers available. Knowing where important documents are, such as birth certificates and insurance policies, in the event residents must leave their homes, and certainly staying tuned to local media for the latest advisories from the National Weather Service and the National Hurricane Center. And then, as the governor said, following trusted, verified sources for the latest news, and be prepared to follow the instructions of state and local public safety officials. And then lastly, it's very important if you live in a low-lying area or in a coastal area, that you definitely need to have a plan, depending on what the situation is going to be, but definitely need to have a plan, and John already mentioned that. And to help with planning, we encourage all our residents to visit our website at SCEMD.org. It's got a wealth of information in there for individuals, families, and businesses. In preparing for emergency situations. We also have our South Carolina Emergency Manager app. It's also a great tool, which includes a module that allows citizens to create their own personal plan. And then finally, we need to remember collectively here in the state that hurricanes and tropical storms are not just a coastal event. The effects of a hurricane or tropical storm can be felt throughout South Carolina, and right now that's what it's forecast to be, is all our residents will be impacted in some way, either through rain or wind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nanette Edwards, Office of Regulatory Staff.
Thank you, Governor. Nanette Edwards, I'm the Executive Director for the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff. We work with utilities and fuel suppliers. Right now, based on the information that you've heard, the utilities are preparing. Right now, they're anticipating some sporadic outages, so we urge you to prepare for that possibility, as outlined by Mr. Stinson. If you are a medical needs customer and you are reliant on power, we would recommend that you look at making some alternative arrangements as you track the trajectory of the storm. With regard to fuel supplies, we are in good shape. We are not anticipating any issues with fuel. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Simmer?
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Ed Simmer, Director of the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control. We are working with our healthcare facilities, dam owners, and drinking and wastewater systems across the state to ensure everyone is ready for this storm and that we minimize the impact on the people of South Carolina. Specific to dams, we are working together with other state agencies and local authorities and dam owners to make sure our dams are safe. We just put a news release out yesterday with some guidance for dam owners. Specifically, we want them to make sure their spillways are clear of any debris so that they can work if they do get excessive water behind their dam, and also to consider lowering the water level in their dam if needed to, again, allow for increased water with the great amount of rain that we're likely to get. Certainly, before lowering the water level, please coordinate with other dam owners on that same watershed, with folks who are downstream from the dam. And very importantly, make sure you're monitoring your dam throughout this event. And if you think your dam is at imminent risk of failure, first of all, please call 911, notify local authorities, notify those who are downstream, and then also contact DHAC. We have dam inspectors on duty. They're out in the state right now checking some of our high-risk dams. They will be available immediately after the storm. If you think you have problems, they'll be available to come out, help you, provide technical assistance to ensure we do not have any negative impacts. Also, please visit our website, scdhec.gov/dams, which provides more information about how to manage dam safety. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out to us. We're here to help. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Silver. Well, again, we urge everybody to think ahead and be prepared. The time to get ready is now. We don't know what's coming or when, but I'd remind everybody when we speak of a plan, that is, know if the hurricane arrives at your front door, you need to know ahead of time where you're going to go, when you're going to go, who's going to be there, what you're taking with you, where are your important papers, insurance policies, what do you do with your pets, your animals, what do you tell your relatives, all those kind of things. Take whatever medications you need. These are the things that you need to always be prepared in case of any sort of emergency. But here's one that may be coming to our doorstep. So, are there any questions from anyone here?
Governor, are there any plans for the schools this coming Friday? Any closing of schools or anything?
We are, of course, in contact with the Department of Education, but those decisions will all depend on what's happening. We have the people in the county areas that are in contact as well. But we've been in contact with Clemson and Carolina about the classes and activities. But everybody's watching now. We really don't know what is going to happen. But again, we need to be prepared and be watchful.
Governor, have there been any plans made related to potential evacuations of low-lying areas near the coast?
We haven't made, well, the plans have already been made. You can find those on the website Mr. Stinson mentioned, to find your route, find how to get out of wherever you are, know the roads, and also remember, listen to the official sources. Don't follow those social media posts, because a lot of times they're in error. But those plans are ready. They have not been activated. We haven't started blocking roads or closing anything like that. We may not have to. I hope we don't have to. But those are the things that everyone needs to be prepared about.
Governor, if the call is made to evacuate, when do you expect that call to be made?
It'll be made when necessary. We don't know when that's going to be, because we still don't know exactly where the storm, where it's coming, when it's going to get here. We know it is going to arrive. We know we're going to have some flooding. We know we're going to have some high water. That's already been mentioned, but beyond that, it's too early to say.
If it does go over the Atlantic, how strong can the storm get? I guess that's a question for John.
If it does emerge into the Atlantic, on the current track that's out there, on the current forecast out there now, it's still forecast to be a tropical storm. But certainly whenever a tropical system is out over warmer waters, it has the potential to at least maintain intensity or maybe even strengthen a little bit. So it's something we'd want to closely monitor if it does make it into the Atlantic. How long is it there? What are the conditions like? Are they favorable for it to maintain its intensity, or is it still going to weaken some? And we just don't have those answers just yet. It's something we'll kind of continue to monitor here over the next day or two. But, whether it stays inland or does move over the ocean, I think for the most part, the impacts are generally going to be the same. We're going to see some, storm surge inundation along the coast. We're going to see some stronger winds. We're going to have the heavier rainfall. So I don't think it's so important to focus on the exact track or the exact intensity, really focus on those impacts. And again, I think everyone in the state needs to be prepared. You're not going to see all of those potential impacts, but the potential is there for the rain, for the wind, for the storm surge if you're along the coast, maybe even some isolated tornadoes for eastern parts of the state. So again, I think everyone should be prepared. Don't focus so much on the intensity of the storm or the exact track. We're fairly confident we're going to see impacts from the system.
Do we have any expectation as to the extent of damage on buildings or infrastructure?
Based on the current forecast now of tropical storm force winds, you typically wouldn't get much damage to well-built structures. Certainly with those kind of wind speeds, we could see down trees and power lines, outdoor loose objects blown around, things like that. It's, we start getting to the hurricane force winds where we start getting a little bit more concerned about damage to actual structures. But something people could do now is take in any loose objects, lawn furniture, anything that could blow around pretty easily. Be prepared for maybe some power outages if, trees fall on power lines, or maybe some roads might be temporarily blocked if trees do come down. Those are the things that people can plan and expect, I think, at this point.
This might be a question for the governor then. Understanding that that might be forthcoming, I guess what have we put in place to perhaps speed a cleanup or prepared for the cleanup in the aftermath?
But we are prepared for that with General or Kim, it's your start.
Sure. Well, one thing is we've got a great deal of experience in recovery in much larger events than what we're expecting here for this particular one. So we've got good plans in place. It's built at the local level and then state supported, and then if the event's big enough, then there's federal funds to do that. But bottom line is that, we'll get that taken care of as quickly as possible, and we've got a great deal of experience in doing that.
Is there anything different with how you got prepared for this hurricane as opposed to other storms in the past, or have you seen any?
Not really. It's pretty much the same, getting ready to do what we have to do. And a big part of it is the personal preparedness piece and trying to push that. But nothing significantly different this time than we've done before.
More questions?
Governor, are there any plans to issue state of emergencies either for specific counties or the whole state as we kind of get closer to this event?
Well, that's what I mentioned earlier. We are watching that. We don't think it's time to do that. We'll do it when the time comes. But we would urge everyone right now to continue with your normal activities, but prepare for the worst. We hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We know that we're going to have high winds. We know we're going to have a lot of water. We know, of course, Charleston, the coastal towns are going to see a lot of water. Charleston will have a lot of water in the streets because they do in times like these. But we urge people, the main thing that we want the citizens to do is be prepared. And when it comes time to issue various orders, we'll do that.
This morning, I saw a bunch of bucket trucks going east on I-26. Is that them pre-positioning for potential outages?
Okay.
Yes, that is the case. I didn't mention it earlier, but our utilities in our state have made arrangements, should the need arise, for additional personnel if they needed to call upon mutual aid. It's where a utility, for example, Duke, has reached out to their Midwest, and so their Midwest operations have probably already started making their way down to Florida. I talked with Dominion earlier today. They have an off-system crew that's standing by of about 300. If they end up not needing those crews would be released to go down to Florida.
More questions?
Governor, if the flooding got really severe and people needed help, what agencies are they reaching out to? Would they have to dial 911, or has that been set aside yet?
Certainly, if it's an emergency situation, 911 would be the way to go. Also, alerting their local county emergency manager that there's a situation. And part of what we have to do is build an intelligence picture, if you will, about where the problems are. So certainly they can report that. But generally, it'll start at the local level. And then we've got a number of state agencies that are involved in what we call mass care and ensuring, people are taken care of if they have to leave their home for whatever reason.
More questions?
Are there going to be any shelters that will be open if people have to be evacuated to South Carolina?
Right, good question. Are you talking about evacuating to South Carolina?
Yes.
No, right now, we don't have any plans to do that. Some of the local authorities are exploring possibilities of opening up shelters in their own area for people that might need shelter. But right now, there's been no discussions about out-of-state sheltering.
More questions?
Is there a number that people can call if they do experience dam failures? What's the best way to get in touch with DHEC in that regard?
Sure. If you just go to our website, scdhetc.gov/dams, all that information is there. We also have a system where we've been automatically calling all of our dam owners and emailing them, and that information will be in those calls and emails as well.
More questions?
We already saw USC move up its football game to Thursday. Are you giving that same advice to Clemson and its college game day activities?
Who's giving you advice?
I mean, Clemson's going to be
We've had conversations with them, but as far as, John, take away from that.
Yeah, I can't speak specifically to any university, but I know the National Weather Service is in touch with our partners in county emergency management, and at most of the university have emergency management departments that we're in contact with, so they're certainly aware of the forecast. I'm not sure what decisions are being made, but they certainly should be aware of what we're expecting.
Ultimately, it's up to them, is what you're saying?
Yes, essentially, yes.
What's the potential impact the storm will have in other areas across the state other than Charleston and the coastal areas?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think I want to stress we're not just expecting this to be, even though right now we have the tropical storm and the storm surge warnings for Charleston County south along the coast, we anticipate additional watches being issued in the next coming days as Ian gets a little bit closer. So I don't want the focus just to be on the coast for this storm. I think there's certainly the storm surge happens at the coast, and that's where that inundation is going to occur in flood-prone areas. Really, with anywhere from 3 to 8 inches of rainfall expected in about a 2-day period, it's very likely that we're going to see some flash flooding. And right now, that could occur anywhere in the state. It just depends where those heavier rain bands develop. So inland can certainly see that. The tropical storm force winds or equivalent winds can certainly be an issue for much of the state. And in fact, when you get winds like that in areas in the upstate with a higher elevation, sometimes you get enhancement of the winds. You actually might get some stronger winds in the higher elevations than you do in other areas of the state. So that's why we really don't want anyone to think that the storm isn't maybe going to impact them. Everyone should be prepared in the event that these impacts do occur.
How about tornadoes?
Yeah, and the threat of tornadoes, thank you, Governor, is we think it's limited. That's probably out of all the potential impacts, the one we have the least concern with. Really, the focus for that would be isolated tornadoes, primarily across the eastern half of the state, and that looks to be maybe more Friday night into Saturday. And of course, tornadoes are concerning, but they tend to be a little bit more isolated, impact smaller areas. So that's something that we would issue, tornado warnings for as we see them developing on radar. And people should be aware of that, know what to do in the event you are under a tornado warning. Go to a safe spot in the lowest level of your home, away from windows and doors on the inside of the house. But that's the usual severe weather protocol that we have in the state.
More questions? Thank you very much.